In today's video tutorial, we're going to create a really pretty fall cake, which will feature pumpkin meringues. I'm starting by adding the egg whites and a pinch of salt to the mixing bowl. You want to make sure that your mixing bowl and whisk attachment are completely clean and free of grease so that the egg whites will whip up properly. And we're just going to mix them at medium-high speed until they're nice and foamy and reach the soft peak stage. Okay, so this is what the soft peak looks like. And now we're mixing again. You're going to gradually add your superfine sugar. And also the clear vanilla. And then gradually add the powdered sugar. You might need to turn the mixer down slightly for this step. And then we're back to medium-high speed, and you're just going to continue mixing until eventually you reach this stiff peak stage. But you'll want to check on it now and then and just make sure. It's hard to tell without stopping and lifting up the whisk attachment. Okay, so that's not quite ready. I'm just going to mix some more until we can lift up the mixer and it can hold a peak. And so now we know that it's going to hold its shape as we do our piping. Now it's time to tint our meringues. So I'm going in and just using AmeriColor coloring gel, or you can use whatever coloring gel you like. Tint the different little bowls of meringue, whatever shades you want for your pumpkins. So for me, I did a darker shade of orange, a lighter shade, ivory, and green. And I also mixed up a little bit of brown for the stems. So here I'm just piping right onto a parchment-lined cookie sheet. And I'm just using a large star tip, so a 1M tip or a 2D tip would be good. I'm using a 1M for most of these. And for instance, you can go in and just do sort of an elongated shell. I'm doing 3 vertical lines just kind of curved together to form the pumpkin shape most of the time. But I also just experimented with different swirls and different shapes. I feel like anything goes for this. Here's sort of a rosette look. We have a lot of meringue to work with, so just go ahead and pipe lots and lots of pumpkins in all different sizes and shapes and colors. It's best to have more than you think you're actually going to need, because that way you can just pick and choose from your favorites. So I just have a variety of sizes. The pumpkins that I end up using on the top are probably slightly taller, or at least some of them are slightly taller than the rest of them, so you might want to keep that in mind. But just experiment and have fun with it. This pretty green that I'm using is AmeriColor Avocado Green, and I really like that. And I use that not just for pumpkins, but also for leaves. So I have loaded this piping bag with the tip snipped away to create the leaves. And to do that, you can see I'm just piping just a small little leaf here and there on some of the pumpkins. And I also have a small star tip that I'm using to pipe little brown stems on the pumpkins as well. So you might decide that you want to pipe leaves directly onto the pumpkins, but you can also, I'll show you a little bit later, pipe leaves separately on the parchment paper and then attach them later with a little bit of buttercream if you'd like to go that route. You can also see on my tray that I did pipe a few pink pumpkins. At one point I thought I might want to bring pink into the mix of colors, but in the end I decided against that, so you can just ignore that. But I am continuing to pipe the leaves here and there, some on the pumpkins, not all of them, and then also a few directly on the parchment paper. So if you pipe any directly on the parchment, you just kind of let that meringue kind of poof out of the piping bag and make a teardrop shape. And then I just went back in with a toothpick to add just a little line on those leaves, just as an extra little detail. Okay, and here we are after baking the meringues, and you can see they're really cute and interesting looking, and they just puffed up just slightly. I feel like the little ridges in the piping show up even better now that they've baked. And you should just be able to pick them up very easily from the parchment once they're finished. So now it's time to get our cake ready. So I'm using an 8-inch tier today that we've frosted with vanilla buttercream, and I'm just creating a simple spiral on top with my offset spatula as I rotate the cake on a turntable. But you can decorate the top however you like. And then around the bottom of the cake, I'm adding some buttercream, little palette knife strokes. You can see I just have little dots of green buttercream. I used the avocado green, and I also used a leaf green for a brighter shade to mix in. In the beginning, I thought that the shorter grasses would be enough, but I ended up going back in and making them slightly taller a little bit later on after adding my pumpkins, because I realized that I couldn't see as much green as I wanted to. So just keep that in mind. You might want to extend your green strokes a little bit further up the cake. But I think it's a really fun look. I love buttercream texture. And so this is just a really simple way to add more texture and color to the cake. When you're ready to add the pumpkins, just add a little dot of buttercream to the back and just push them right in. I like to push mine so that you can see on the very edge it stands out away from the cake just slightly, because they are nice and firm. You have a little bit more room to add dimension. You don't have to press them completely down flat against the cake, which I think is nice. And then the smaller pumpkins, the ones that are stars, a lot of those I just rest right on the cake pedestal, which is why it's nice to have a variety of sizes. Here's an example of just a little leaf that I'm going to attach with a little dot of buttercream. I didn't do this on a lot of pumpkins, but it's a good little option for more dimension if you'd like to go that route. And those little leaves also make great filler. So I did use the leaves here and there in between the pumpkins also. So this part is super simple. The hardest part really is just deciding which pumpkins you want to use and what kind of arrangement of colors and sizes that you like the best. And here I'm just making those green strokes just a little bit taller so that I could see them a little bit better. Okay, so I have sped up the video just a little bit because at this point we're just attaching the pumpkins. Very simple. I did want to mention I'm using a crusting buttercream. You can see how I'm just pushing those pumpkins on top right into the frosting. I didn't have any trouble with the meringues absorbing too much moisture and softening, but if you're using a non-crusting, super soft frosting, you might want to test it by just smearing a little bit on a plate and placing a meringue onto that frosting just to make sure that they don't soften too much. Otherwise, you'd want to add them closer to the time of the event. Okay, and there's just another little rosette pumpkin. I think this is just a really fun cake with lots of dimension, which I love. Okay, so as a final optional touch, I decided to add some little dots around the sides. I'm just using a small round piping tip number 3, just as an extra little detail. Okay, our cake is finished. I think it turned out really pretty. This would be such a nice fall cake, whether you're having a Halloween party or just a fall gathering or Thanksgiving, you should keep this in mind. The meringues are a lot of fun. They're simple to make, and I love the dimension that they add to the cake. But if you don't have time for meringues, you could also do something really similar around the sides by just using buttercream. That's also a popular style. You just wouldn't be able to have any on top. But hope you'll keep all of these ideas in mind. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.